The wagon wheels creaked to a halt in front of the weathered wooden house as the afternoon sun painted the prairie sky in shades of amber and gold. Catherine Muller clutched her worn carpet bag tighter, her knuckles white beneath her thin gloves. The tears she had been fighting for the past 3 days of travel finally spilled over as she stared at what was to become her new home. Thomas Brennan stepped down from his horse, removing his wide-brimmed hat as he approached the wagon. At 38, he had the steady bearing of a man who had learned to rely on himself, but his weathered face held a gentleness that spoke of kindness earned through hardship. He had been waiting for this moment with equal measures of hope and uncertainty. The driver helped Catherine down from the wagon, and Thomas could see immediately that something was terribly wrong. Her blue dress, though clean and carefully mended, hung loose on her frame. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands trembled as she tried to smooth her blonde hair beneath her bonnet. "Miss Muller?" Thomas asked softly, his voice carrying the careful respect of a man who understood that this moment would set the tone for everything that followed. Catherine nodded but could not trust her voice to speak. The tears continued to flow, and she felt ashamed of her weakness. She had come so far, traveled so many miles on the promise of a new beginning, only to arrive as broken as when she had left. Thomas studied her face for a long moment, seeing past the tears to the exhaustion and fear beneath. He had expected nervousness, perhaps some awkwardness as they met for the first time after months of correspondence. But this was something deeper, something that spoke of pain that had nothing to do with their arrangement. "You do not have to pretend with me," he said quietly, his words carrying a warmth that surprised them both. "Whatever has brought you to tears, whatever has happened, you are safe now. We can figure out the rest later." His unexpected kindness only made Catherine cry harder. She had prepared herself for awkwardness, for the business-like arrangement they had discussed in their letters. She had steeled herself for the possibility that Thomas might be harsh or demanding. She had not prepared for gentleness. "I am so sorry," she managed between sobs. "I know this is not what you expected. I know I am not what you expected." Thomas handed her his clean handkerchief, a gesture so simple yet so considerate that it spoke volumes about the man he was. "Why do not you tell me what has happened? We have time." Catherine dabbed at her eyes, struggling to compose herself enough to speak. "My father died 2 weeks before I was to leave Boston. I had no money for the funeral, no money for anything. I had to sell everything we owned just to pay the debts he left behind." She looked up at Thomas, her eyes filled with shame and exhaustion. "I spent the last of my money on the train ticket here. I have nothing left. Nothing to bring to this marriage except my willingness to work hard and try to be a good wife." Thomas felt something shift in his chest, a protective instinct he had not experienced in years. This was not the arrangement he had envisioned, but looking at this brave woman who had traveled across the country with nothing but hope, he found he did not care about the original terms of their agreement. "I am sorry for your loss," he said, and she could hear the sincerity in his voice. Losing a parent is never easy, and having to handle everything alone must have been overwhelming. He gestured toward the house where warm light glowed in the windows. "I built this place hoping it would become a home, not just a house. I have been living alone here for 5 years, and I have learned that a home needs more than just one person to make it complete." Catherine looked at the modest but well-maintained farmhouse, the neat garden, the sturdy barn in the distance. Everything spoke of a man who took pride in his work and cared for what was his. "I do not need you to pretend to be something you are not," Thomas continued. "I do not need you to be perfect or to bring me wealth. What I hoped for when we began writing was a partner, someone to share the work and the joys of building a life together." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "If you are willing, we can start as friends. There is plenty of room in the house, and you can have all the time you need to decide if this is truly what you want. There is no pressure, no obligations, beyond what you choose to take on." Catherine stared at him in amazement. "You would do that? Even though I have nothing to offer?" "You have plenty to offer," Thomas replied with conviction. "You have courage. It takes tremendous bravery to leave everything you know and travel halfway across the country for the chance at a new life. You have determination. Despite losing your father and facing financial ruin, you still honored our agreement and made the journey. He smiled, and Catherine saw warmth in his brown eyes that made her heart flutter unexpectedly. And from your letters, I know you have intelligence, humor, and kindness. Those are worth far more than money or possessions. As the sun began to set behind them, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Catherine felt something she had not experienced in months: hope. This man was offering her not just shelter and security, but the chance to heal, to find her footing, to discover who she might become when she was no longer constantly afraid. I would like that very much, she said softly. To start as friends, and to see if we might build something meaningful together. Thomas picked up her carpet bag and offered her his arm. Then let me show you your new home, Catherine. And tomorrow, we can begin figuring out what our life together might look like. As they walked toward the house together, Catherine realized that sometimes the best beginnings come not from carefully laid plans, but from the simple human kindness of someone who sees your worth when you have forgotten it yourself. The prairie. Wind carried the scent of wildflowers and possibility, and for the first time in months, Catherine Miller believed that perhaps her greatest adventures were still ahead of her.